Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Another episode of um, America, America under China. I'll just call it that. In this episode, I'm going to talk a little bit how the pandemic that started in China, Wuhan, China, the coronavirus pandemic, and how it's affecting the global peace, global stability, and things to kind of watch out for. A little bit of probing. I like to probe and analyze. How I love to analyze. So I'm going to talk a little bit about things that might happen with the issue of this global pandemic. So I'll talk a little bit. I'll go over the numbers because we do have some new numbers. Every day are new numbers, of course. But I want to talk about how things are going to happen here domestically, and then domestically in America, United States, and then some of the things that are going to happen around the world, which I think is going to happen. Um, so let's talk about what's happening in America now. In America, um, the infections have the pandemic has caused a lot of economic hardship. I do believe that. I've gone to food lines, and there were a lot of people that went to the food line. Didn't go around the corner. In my community, I wouldn't suspect a lot of people from the community that I live in, where I live, to be at that food line. I don't think they were at that food line. I think these are communities, people in the communities outside of where I live. They just went there for obviously free food. So I went to a food line. I do appreciate the food, but I think more of that is going to happen, mainly because we're having a supply chain disruption, and so apparently the U.S. Agriculture Department, the government for the most part, is going to be buying up all of this agriculture product and then donating it to nonprofits and food banks. So food lines will continue. There is disruptions to the food chain supply, as you know about the meat packing plants, although they're supposed to be online. But I suspect that there will be some shortages in the grocery store. So these things are kind of happening. There's growing discontent with the lockdown, and I think the lockdowns will ease. And my suspicion is, and I'll go over that a little bit later, but my suspicion is that uh, the UV rays from the sun dampen the life of the coronavirus. And so as summer comes around, and there's obviously more intensive UV rays, right now where I am, the UV index, when I look at my weather website that I go to, there's usually a UV index. Right now it's just moderate. It's like 4. It's an index of 1 to 10. It's at like 4 or 5. Now in the summer it gets up to like 10 to extreme. You know, out here in the south, you get quite a bit of sunlight. So as summer and again as the Earth tilts towards the sun, the northern hemisphere of the Earth tilts towards the sun, you're going to get more UV rays, intensive UV rays. So I think there is some anticipation that the summer will be a backdrop. Now, it doesn't eliminate the coronavirus, but it will reduce the contagion, because I do believe that a lot of the infections that have happened are due to fomite. In other words, droplets, contaminated surfaces. The virus seems to really last, live on surfaces for a long time, and I do believe that is probably a major factor. If you look at New York, um, I read a report that 66% of the cases came from people who were at a stay-at-home lockdown in New York City. Now, how would they get infected if they're under a lockdown? Well, probably my guess would be cross-contamination. I don't think you know people were like coughing in each other's faces. I think they were very careful and they were social distancing, but uh, obviously a lot of surfaces were contaminated. I believe that was the major spread, along with obviously in close contact with someone who is infected. But fomite was probably a major transmission way of the coronavirus being transmitted to each other, um, because the Chinese, when the Chinese admitted, all right, several things. First, when they did admit human to human transmission, the Chinese did talk about fomite in particular, like the list of transmission. They listed fomite as the top. All right, they talked about it first, and then aerosol being last. So fomite droplets and fecal matter or oral fecal, and then aerosol last. And I think they talked about it in that order, in that particular order, because of how much transmissible or contagious, how people are getting contracting the coronavirus in that particular order, mostly probably through fomite. And that's probably why you saw the Chinese disinfect everything, because I think they're realizing that fomite was probably one of the key um, ways of transmission. So that's what's happening. Now I'm gonna transition. Well, there's still a lot to talk about, but economics. People are going back to work. People are going back to work. People are also still on unemployment. The issue is now trying to get people who are unemployed back into work, because they're getting paid more to stay unemployed than they are if they were to go back to work. So you're going to have to, at least in the short time, offer more money for people to go back to work than they are getting from being unemployed through the unemployment. The extra $600 plus the whatever they were getting from their unemployment. So there's an issue with that, but I think it makes sense, um, considering the risk involved of going to work. To be honest with you, infections are still occurring. It's just going to be at a slower rate, I think, due to the UV rays of the sun, mainly because of summer. But as soon as winter, fall and winter comes around, I do anticipate a rise in coronavirus cases along with the flu. And so I will be taking a flu vaccine this year. I normally don't, but I will, because I don't want to get confused between the flu and the coronavirus, and I don't want to end up going to the hospital with other people or into a testing line with people who are actually sick with the coronavirus, the whatever, COVID-19, and contracting COVID-19 because I had the flu, right? So I will probably get the vaccine, flu vaccine shot, this year, especially right before during fall and winter. I don't want to get confused and end up accidentally contracting COVID-19 in the process of being tested. So let me shift over to now from domestic to international. Let me shift over to international. My probing of China. I like to probe China and analyze China, so to speak. So there's a few things. There's some reports that the German intelligence leaked out a report that the German intelligence agency leaked out a report that apparently There was a phone call January 21st, apparently. I don't know how true this is, um, that President Xi, the Chinese president, in a phone call with Tedros, the WHO, wanted to delay the report of human to human transmission and declaring a global pandemic. Now, I don't know how true that is. Um, can't be confirmed, really. Don't really know the sources, but the report came from, supposedly it came out of Germany. And all I can say is, when people do, like, when government agencies, their quote unquote intelligent agencies do intelligence gathering, you'll be surprised how often a lot of it is just watching the news. Okay, a lot of quote unquote intelligence gathering is just watching the news, and that's pretty much it. And so, getting a leak and having it being leaked to the general public, sometimes the leak is not meant for the general public. I mean, it could be, for the general public, but it could also be for like other countries, because I think everybody knows that other countries are watching each other's news to quote unquote gather intelligence. So that's intelligence gathering. Not very sexy at all. Not what you would, nothing out of a James Bond movie. But there's the other side of this whole quote unquote intelligence gathering, and that's, tapping into phones. There's always a suspicion of your computer, your smartphones, your tablets, recording, um, recording everything, video recording everything, capturing everything. Whatever goes over the internet is being captured and stored for data mining. So um, there's that aspect as well. But anyways, but if you wanted if you wanted another country to know something without being, liable for the leak or for the information, leaking this kind of information to a newspaper or news agency is a way to communicate to, the general public, and also to other countries of information, without, being, I guess, quote unquote liable for the information. So when I saw this report about um, the German intelligence leaking that the Chinese president, on a phone call with the Dr. Tedros, the WHO, um, about how to delay human-to-human transmission and global, or deny there's human-to-human transmission, and then delay a global pandemic. That's very concerning, very concerning. So I think as time goes on, you're going to see more and more fingers being pointed at China, specifically the Chinese government, about the cover-up. And as more time goes on, I think a lot of pressure is going to be put onto China to investigate, and not from China, but an outside investigation. I don't think they'll comply. They are, China's still being very belligerent, hostile, and rude. Hostile and rude. Um, because I'm also hearing uh, that there's conflict at the borders of China. Actually, this recently, India and China had a actually exchange of fire at the border, from what I understand. So what you're seeing is aggression, some form of aggression from China, to basically, in my opinion, to expand space along its borders. I think China is anticipating some form of conflict, and they're being very aggressive. They're acting as the aggressor. So along the borders of China and probably most likely the South China Seas, you're going to probably see more aggression with Chinese military forces. They're trying to build a buffering zone just in case there is some form of armed conflict or that's going to be happening or more buildup along the borders. And you're going to see that. Wouldn't surprise me if they started strengthening their relationship with their closest allies, um, perhaps Russia. But my honest opinion about Russia is that Russia will ally with China in the beginning, but offer very limited support. And as soon as if there is a conflict or if there's some kind of war going on against China, I think Russia will flip. They will turn on a dime. Uh, Probably, most likely, if they start seeing China lose the battle, they will turn on a dime because they don't want to be the loser, especially for something that has really nothing to do with them, with nothing to do with Russia. So, I mean, Russia doesn't really want to be a part of, don't want Russians. I think Russians and Russia, the government of Russia, don't want to be a part of this whole, you know, fight against China. They're trying to, they probably want to distance themselves, but they will probably, be an ally at the beginning and they'll flip on a dime as soon as they see China start to collapse and fall. But until then, they'll pretend to be friends. And then Iran, I do think Iran will back China, and it wouldn't surprise me if China strengthens the relationship with Iran by offering nuclear technology to Iran, because they want. I think China does see the threat coming, so they want to build a buffer and they want to build, you know, allies, and offering this technology, I think in to the Chinese mind, uh, is a way for them to build a buffer against attacks and threats. And also, they'll wouldn't surprise me if this is already happening, but China may try to overtake North Korea or offer more assistance to North Korea, um, as a way of buffering. And it makes sense because if something happens and Iran or North Korea takes any action, it's there is an out for China. They can deny any knowledge, right, or um, responsibility because another country did whatever, and they could just say, "Well, it wasn't us." So it would make sense that their reach for more allies or more support and offering weapons technology, even nuclear technology, to strengthen their relationship with their allies. It makes sense to do that, and so that could happen. Again, you're seeing a lot of things. Conflict along the borders of China, exchange of fire with India and China. You're seeing a lot of belligerence from China, a form of aggression, as well as just being plain rude and their tactics. And so China is really, really nothing more than a scared dog about to be eaten, and their back is up against the wall, really. Okay, with that being said, I covered domestically, I covered international, I guess, in my analysis here, my probe, my analysis. Let's go over the numbers now. Save that for last. So let's just go over it. Let's take a look. Wow, this number is just slowly growing. Still 1,309,000 100,550 cases. I don't know if I said that right, but it's a lot. It's a lot. I can't even say it anymore. 25,621 new cases. Uh, Below 30, but still in the 20s. I like to see that number go below 20 and into the 10,000 new cases per day. That would be, I think that's probably as good as we're going to get, and hopefully it can go down in the thousands. I don't know if you can ever get rid of this. It will be, I do believe it's going to be dampened by the sun during the summer, and I think people should take that opportunity to prepare, start preparing, become a prepper in a lot of sense. Um, Prep up on food while it's still available, prep up on supplies. If ammo and guns are available, prep up on those as well. Prep up on whatever you need to do. Either it's fixing the house or prepping the house or whatever it is, just start prepping, and because that's probably the window of opportunity to do that. Let's have a look at the death the death rate, or the death per day, seem to be going down. 78,795 deaths. It definitely will eventually go into at least 100,000 deaths. Maybe, I don't know how long they're going to record this pandemic. The pandemic may last several years, all right? Not just 3 months, but several years. So the total number could easily in America go into a few hundred thousands, depending on how bad the waves come. And like I said, I think the second wave will come during October, November, December, January, February, March, April, during that time frame. I think we're having a break right now because, again, what I'm hearing is reports of UV rays um, having a severe effect of the virus surviving on surfaces. And so I think we should take this opportunity to prepare. All right, and then here's the normal log. um, I do anticipate that there will be a downtrend in confirmed cases and infections, but only during the summertime. I think during the winter, fall and winter, it will increase, and you can see that here. So it's better than it was I don't know, a month ago, but we're not out of the woods. We're just starting to be in the woods. We have a long ways to go before um, we're out of this. Either herd immunity, there's only two options: herd immunity and a vaccine. That's about it right now. So this thing is just slowly burning. It probably will catch on fire again in the winter, is my thoughts. All right. So until I see cases go below 20,000 or 10,000 or in the thousands, we're not out of the woods by far. Death rates have the death has gone down, um, but again, I think it's due to the weather, the sun, the UV rays, more than any measures that we took, whether social distancing or wearing a mask or anything. And um, let me just go to this here, because if you look here, infection and testing, if you go to any state, and I talked about this yesterday, if you go to any state, you'll see that their estimated infections is going to be reduced during the summertime. If you go to any state, let's just go to New York. New York, where's New York? All right, so if you go to New York, again, now this graph looks different because they've had a huge spike. All right, they're a huge spike. This was the epicenter. But even in New York, it's eventually going to go down during the summer. If you go to Michigan, if you go to any one of these, where's Michigan? We'll go to Michigan. And these are some of the hardest hit States. They're having their spikes here, their peaks, and then as you see summer comes around, June, July, August, you'll see the estimated. Now these models aren't 100% accurate. They're not perfect. I've seen them change many times, but overall they've given good indication of what possibly could happen. The models again are not perfect. I know that, from watching these and going over them, they tend to change based on updated data that they get. But for the most part, they do indicate some form of, um, you know, prediction of how things are going to turn out. So uh, from the models right now, it seems like there's anticipation that during the summer, infections will go down. Let's have a look at Illinois. Illinois, and even here, you see the June, July, they're predicting infections go down. Let's have another one, California. Let's have a look at California. That's the West Coast. And even California, again, estimated infections going down during the summer. So you see that all over the place. Let's have a look at New Jersey, just to round it out, and I'll go back to Texas. New Jersey. New Jersey, same thing. Infections going down during summer. So I'm going to head back to Texas. So you're seeing this pattern of, let me see, where's Texas? There, it's Texas. So you're seeing this pattern here where they're anticipating infections to go down during summer. Texas never had a huge spike, and it probably will maintain the same level of infection. And during summer, it'll just be lower. But I do anticipate, again, fall and winter, October, November, December, January, February, March, to have the second wave come back. This is going to be the second wave, so prepare. So during this time where we have a lull in infection, I would recommend go ahead and get your flu shots, get your flu vaccine shots, because you don't want to confuse flu for COVID, and you don't want to get tested for COVID when you have the flu and be with other people who actually are infected with COVID. So you want to reduce or eliminate that possibility if you do get sick. So if you start feeling symptoms, it's really important to treat those symptoms as early as possible to make sure that you don't end up being hospitalized. Lessons learned. So that's kind of what I wanted to say and show. That's about it. Other than what's going on, um, I think we have an opportunity to prepare for the next wave. So the next wave, I do think, will be coming in winter and fall. Anyways, please like, share, comment. Please subscribe. Until next time, bye-bye.